that is that the ASIO files that I've seen are notoriously inaccurate. That they're littered with suppositions and with slander and gossip of the worst kind. The one I was particularly taken with, actually, it's not an ASIO file, it's pre-ASIO. In 1920, the intelligence services disconcerted by how ineffective the Communist Party is, and there's a file that confidently explains that actually the Communist Party is really led by a secret organisation called the Secret Seven that identifies itself with a password which is Kismet, and these are the people who are really running communism all over the country. So obviously they get a little bit better, but you do make the point somewhere through the book that it takes them close to 60 years to actually work out how to spell your father's name. And given that level of inaccuracy and given their predisposition to think that everyone is a communist, should we pay any particular merit to these assertions about who in the Labour Party was a communist and who wasn't?
Well, I think that there is an art form in itself to the interpretation of ASIO files. They are an extraordinarily important primary source, but like all primary sources, you need to evaluate each document and try to give what is in that document due weight. It's also very, very obvious, and I haven't just read the 32,000 pages of the family files, but over the last quarter of a century I've probably read 1 million plus pages of ASIO files, and not all of them on the left, probably well over half of them on Nazis and fascists in Australia. And what comes through is that if you have an agent who is close to somebody, you need to try and evaluate the authenticity and professionalism of what that agent is saying. And it's obvious to me that the best agents who were infiltrated into the Communist Party were directed at certain people, and most principally to Laurien, my father. And the quality of those agents is vastly higher than an agent in the Ringwood branch of the Communist Party. Not that I'm saying you should ignore everything that that agent in that branch said, but they are not as highly trained and they are not as professional. When it comes to the question of Labour Party figures inside, who were undercover members of the Communist Party, this is history. It's not something that we need to rely entirely upon what is in the ASIO files. We know that there was a very, very sophisticated operation that began from the mid-1930s onwards. Communists practically took over the New South Wales branch of the ALP at the beginning of the Second World War. If we take someone like Tom Uren, who you mentioned, I'm absolutely convinced that Tom Uren was not a secret member of the Communist Party, and the only document in his file that says that he was mentions explicitly that he was a member for 10 years and that his shop was used as the propaganda depot for the local party branch. Well, if that was true, there would be dozens, if not hundreds, of agent reports on Tom Uren's membership, and there is none. Arthur Geitzel, on the other hand, was attending Central Committee meetings. He was going to party schools at the education facility out at Minto. He was being identified not only by ASIO agents within the party, but he would walk into party headquarters to go to a Central Committee meeting, and ASIO would take photos of him. When, many, many years later, in the 1970s, he attends a meeting with my father and another senior communist official, somebody who is highly placed as an ASIO operative records about 15 different reports on what was said by Geitzel and another ALP member, Bruce Childs, to and between my father and the other communist official. And each of them is highly detailed. It could not have come out of gossip. had to have heard a report by my father of what was said. So you have a long period of history from the 1940s through to the 1970s where Arthur Geekthorpe is constantly meeting with my father in clandestine operations to try and evade ASIO, and ASIO was always there.
You've done all this research on 4 generations of the party. You've obviously done a lot of thinking and reading about it. How then do you assess the entire